Hey everyone, welcome back. So it's Tuesday night, sorry. Jeez. So today was a crazy day, obviously, with Riot announcing that their intention of buying out Bitfarms. They had 9.25% of the shares of Bitfarms as of this morning. We find out just within the last hour or two that they have purchased an additional 3 million shares. Now they own 10% of the company. So it looks like they are doubling down on buying Bitfarms. They're going to go for a hostile takeover, whatever it takes, it looks like, to possibly get Bitfarms into their sphere of ownership. So we'll take a look at obviously what that states in there. We'll take a look at also some adoption for Bitcoin. We do have a story that a company has put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, which obviously you're kind of seeing more and more of this happening as Bitcoin price appreciates, more adoption in institutions, things like that. So we'll get into that, then we'll get into obviously your guys' Q&A side of things as well. So it should be pretty short and sweet here, but as always, you guys know the drill here. Not financial advice for entertainment only. I'm invested in fund coins and companies. Do your own research. I'm not paid by any Bitcoin mining companies. And if you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And let's take a look at what happened today with the markets, really, as far as Bitcoin and the miners. We covered this a little bit in the afternoon session, I guess, in the live stream at that point. We saw what was going on at that point. We covered, obviously, the other charts. We're not going to get into those. But Bitcoin obviously ended up down on the day here. It was down approximately 1.51%, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It bounced back up a little bit here, which was obviously nice to see here on Bitcoin, and it closed out at 68,321. We're up a little bit here right now on it. Kind of trading sideways right now, kind of like an accumulation phase, it looks like, in Bitcoin right now. I mean, if you just look at the last couple trading days here. So we'll see how tomorrow progresses for that. Today, Bitfarms obviously had probably the best performance here. Was up 9.41% on the day. And then who else did pretty good here? Digihost was up 3.08, and everybody else was either red or slightly in the green here. IREN was up a little bit as well. So it's kind of the way things played out. But obviously, Bitfarms is the big story of today. So let's get into the news that we do have here. We'll get into Bitfarms really quick as well. I'll give you guys my thoughts again on this, what I think of all of this. But we do have some good news. So Similar Scientific announces Bitcoin treasury strategy. I thought this was kind of interesting here as well, right? We're seeing obviously Bitcoin being adopted more and more by institutions, by now businesses as well. So Similar Scientific announced today that its board of directors has adopted Bitcoin as its primary treasury reserve asset. In addition, Similar Scientific announced that it has purchased 581 Bitcoin for an aggregate amount of 40 million, inclusive of fees and expenses. And the stock obviously today shut up like past 30% at one point, but it finished out the day up 24%. So we may start seeing more and more of this, right? We also have Block, which is buying like 10% of their net revenues or something like that into Bitcoin each month. So you're just seeing more and more. MicroStrategy obviously started this whole trend where he put it on his balance sheet, and now the company's doing very well because of it. But here's what I thought was also interesting. Their comments here. So our Bitcoin treasury strategy and purchase of Bitcoin underscores our belief that Bitcoin is a reliable store of value and a compelling investment, said Eric Semler, Semler Scientific's chairman. Bitcoin is now a major asset class with more than 1 trillion of market value. We believe it has unique characteristics as a scarce and finite asset that can serve as a reasonable inflation hedge and safe haven amid global instability. We also believe its digital architectural resilience makes it preferable to gold, which has a market value of approximately 10 times that of Bitcoin. Given the gap in value between gold and Bitcoin, we believe that Bitcoin has the potential to generate outsized returns as it gains increasing acceptance as digital gold. And boy, I couldn't agree more there on it. So, slowly these dominoes are falling where companies are getting more and more into Bitcoin here, which is nice to see, because for us, it's going to be good news, because then that means Bitcoin price is going to go up in value. So obviously this is why we are in the space, because of that, right? It's volatile. Yes, we have huge days where we're up, and then we have days where we're way down also on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, especially those guys. Okay, but here's Riot. So Riot doubles down on the trying to overtake Bitfarms, basically a buyout. So Riot Platforms Inc. reports beneficial ownership of 10% in Bitfarms Ltd. This came out like an hour or two ago at 7:55 p.m. CDT time. So, right, just recently here. And here's what we have. So Riot Platforms issues the press release pursuant to Part 3 of Canadian National Instrument 62-103, the early warning system and related takeover bid and insider reporting issues, and Part 5 of Canadian National Instrument 62-104, takeover bids and issuer bids in respect of Bitfarms. Okay. So Riot announces that on May 28th, which is obviously today, it acquired ownership of an additional 3,235 2,350 shares of common shares, purchase shares of the company representing approximately 0.75% of the issued and outstanding common shares of the company. Okay, so that's on top of what they already had this morning at 9.25%. Add the 0.75 to it, they are now at 10%. The purchase shares were acquired through normal course of purchases on the NASDAQ stock market and other open market trades for a weighted average price of approximately $2.19 per share. Going down here. What else? For aggregate amount of 6.5 million roughly in USD and approximately 8.9 in Canadian. Let's see here. The press release, right? Beneficial. Yeah, we covered that. Okay. The purchase of the securities giving rise to the issuance of this press release followed Riot's attempt to engage with the board of directors of the company regarding non-binding proposal to acquire all of the outstanding common shares of the company. In particular, on April 22nd, Riot sent a letter to the board, sent out Riot's non-binding proposal to acquire all of the outstanding common shares of the company for consideration of $2.30 per common share to be paid with a combination of cash and shares of Riot common stock at the purchase. Okay, so we already covered that basically in this morning's video. So basically nothing has really changed much here other than, like I said, Riot is just doubling down on this for whatever reason. Excuse me. I was listening to one of the spaces with Mike Alfred. He had that space on around 4:30, 5 o'clock, right around there. And he basically talked about this as well. And he had some good points. He actually said that he spoke to Jason, the CEO of Riot, this morning. And he basically told him, why are you getting into trying to buy out Bitfarms when you haven't even really resolved your own issues that you have as far as operation side of things? So there are obviously people that are seeing this for what it is. And, well, maybe not for what it is, but basically what they're trying to do, I think they're kind of trying to grow when they haven't even fixed their own issues, right? I think the growth would be accretive to them, right? At this price of $2.30 for Bitfarms would be a freaking steal at that point, right? But it's obviously not great for the shareholders of Bitfarms because the stock is down because we've had so much FUD. The CEO FUD, the Paraguay FUD, as far as Bitcoin mining ban happening there, we had obviously Canadian Tex FUD as well. And it's just all of these things that have been piling on Bitfarms that has caused the stock obviously to go down in price tremendously, being way undervalued from where it really should be. Right now, it should be like around $4, $5, maybe $6 per share, trading if it was valued properly, like some of the other mining companies are valued right now. Okay, so that's part of it. And then the reasons I think Riot wants to get it is obviously they want to be seen as one of the top miners here. So getting Bitfarms, they would get mining sites in Canada, United States, Paraguay, and Argentina as well. So then they have basically sites outside of the United States where right now they're kind of concentrated in one region, Texas, right? They got two sites there, Rockdale and Corsicana, which is a new one, which they're building out still and growing the hash rate there. So it was a little bit obviously surprise for everybody here, right? It would be a win for Riot. It wouldn't be a win for the Bitfarms shareholders right now. And I think that's why the board of Bitfarms just kind of dismissed it, right? You're not going to allow a company to be sold for $2.30 when the potential is so much higher, especially if they can get to 21 exahash by the end of the year. It's a 3x growth there. Bitcoin continues to go up in value over the next 6 to 12 months. You're looking at the stock price could be 5 to 10x higher from where it is right now, right? So why would you even consider selling the company at $2.03? Makes absolutely no sense at that point. But it is what it is right now. We're going to have to deal with this. This is an additional FUD on top of what we've already had. And as far as Bitfarms' reaction to this, we haven't had any, right? So they got to get their act together as well as a board. I mean, I can see why people are saying that the board is dysfunctional because they can't even put out a press release how they're going to fight this, how they're, how they view the company as being much better than what the offer is for. So I can see how people are saying that the board there is dysfunctional because right now I'm seeing the same thing just by not having a press release come out saying, this is what we're going to be doing. This is why we're not going with the sale of it. We believe that the value of the company is much higher than this based on X, Y, Z, and A, right? So we're not seeing that. Maybe they will come out in the next day or two, but they really should be more proactive with this. They really should have this stuff. If they had this basically intent going back a month now, going back to April, they should have already talked to the lawyers. They should have already had other things in line. They should have probably a drafted version of a press release already ready to go in case something like this happens. They didn't. So now what's probably happening now is the board members are probably dealing with lawyers, trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward with this, what's the best way to prevent a buyout, especially a hostile buyout. So are they looking like at a poison pill potentially, right? A scenario on that one. What other options could they actually have to prevent this? So there's a lot of onus on the board at Bitfarms. They need to get their act together and they need to be more proactive, get stuff out there to investors, I believe. That's what I'm looking for. I'm sure that's what you guys are looking for also. And we'll have to see when they do reply on this. I'm hoping it's within 24 hours. If they can't get that act together within 24 hours, that board needs to change then, if that's the case. They need to get some people that are obviously more competent in those positions, at least in my opinion. Okay, so that's it for that. Let me know what you guys think of this. We'll get into Q&A side of things, and we'll discuss it there as well. See if you guys have any questions, any thoughts on it, any comments. I'll post the comments too if they're good comments, but try to keep it clean, obviously, right? I don't swear on my channel, so please keep it clean. And then always the comments, and when you guys see them, the questions get replied to or answered by me is like delayed by about 15 seconds or something like that. Okay, so be patient. I will get to all your guys' questions as well. Okay, let me scroll over here. All right, let's see if we have any questions here that have been already popped up. Let's see. Poor Sebastian's off his rocker. Yeah, I'm a little upset with this, right? I think, obviously, maybe you're in the camp for Riot. I mean, if Riot gets this, this would be a steal for them, right? So if you own Riot shares and you're a Riot holder, you're definitely going to be rooting for this. Poor Sebastian, we need to start accepting reality. I accept reality that potentially Riot could possibly buy him out via a hostile merger. If that happens, I'm still up. $2.30, I'm going to be up like 60-70% on Bitfarms. So I'm not at a loss. I'll take those shares. I'll move them over to like IREN and CORZ Scientific or something like that. So I'm not going to be fretting over it. But it's obviously not great for the investors that have invested in Bitfarms going forward, right? For the potential huge gains that are possible there, especially if the stock does well once they build out and Bitcoin price goes up much higher. Let's see here. See, Brad A. This new strategy by Riot adds validation for miners to expand into HPC and revenue diversification strategies as defense against hostile takeovers in the future. I don't think that's going to really matter. I mean, that will help a little bit. But if you have that, the big thing is obviously infrastructure, getting access to electricity, megawatts, all that stuff is important because that's how you actually grow right now, right? Eventually, maybe these guys will get to a certain scale where they don't need to get new infrastructure. If they're like at, let's just say 2 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts, maybe 4 gigawatts of power singly in their own divisions, then maybe they can just replace older machines with newer ones, right? And grow their hash rate that way without having to actually expand on infrastructure or land or things like that. Let's see. Trying to find, okay, let me see here. They made an offer with Bitfarms was under $2, so they thought they were already paying a premium. However, the new CEO will be announced soon, and it will not be Riot CEO. I'm not sure I get that. What does the poison pill option mean? Oh God, let me look. There is an option. Let me see here if I can find a good explanation of it. I know I'm not gonna be able to explain it correctly here, so let me see here. Poison pill. Finance. Okay. So here we go. Let me pull this up. So a poison pill, also known as a shareholders' right plan, is a financial defense mechanism that companies use to deter hostile takeovers. The strategy makes it financially unattractive for potential acquirers by allowing shareholders to buy additional shares at a discount except for the acquiring party. This dilutes the acquirer's ownership percentage and makes the transaction more difficult and expensive. Yeah. There was who was trying to do a poison pill recently? I think... Oh, remember that whole Twitter fiasco when Elon Musk was going to be buying out Twitter? They were thinking about doing the poison pill at that point. That's where I learned that phrase there. Let's see. Let's see. Is this a bit fierce situation for Bitfarms? Not an ideal situation to have another miner owning a majority of the shares. Thoughts? It's only 10%, right? Bitfury owned like 75% of Cypher at one point. That was a big deal there. That's come down to like 35, 45%, I think, now of ownership in Cypher by Bitfury. So it's a lot less than what we've seen in Cypher. But this being 10%, it's obviously not great because they can dump the shares, or if they're smart about it, they could actually hold on to the shares, let the price of the stock appreciate 5, 10x, and they just made 5, 10x on their money there, right? If they can't buy it. But depending on how they do it, they might be a little upset about not being able to purchase them, and they'll dump the shares, and price will probably come down a little bit. Let's see here. IREN market cap is not that much higher than Bitfarms. Is IREN a possible takeover target at some point? That potentially, I mean, IREN right now is around what, 1 billion in market cap roughly, and they are going to be using the ATM as well. So that's going to obviously provide potential for other miners potentially to buy their shares and try and do a hostile takeover as well. So nobody's immune from this. This could be a new playbook for some of these guys that want to buy up other miners as well. Let's see. Do you think it's possible for Riot to simply keep accumulating until they have 51%? I mean, unless Bitfarms starts increasing in price, makes me nervous. I mean, yeah, I mean, if they want to, they have the cash to do it, but they've only acquired 10% for, what was it, about 80 some million, roughly, or so. So they would definitely have to spend a lot more for it. And at that point, I think if they're buying shares, the price of the stock is going to go up. So they're probably going to pay more than the 230 that they offered anyways. And then I don't know how far they're willing to take this. I think, as you know, Jason is a professional poker player, right? A gambler a little bit. So they might press a little hard on it to get their way, potentially, to basically bluff. And if that bluff is called, or if bluff doesn't go through, well, then they might just start selling the shares at that point. We don't know. Let's see. Question, what are your thoughts on BitDeer? Seems extremely undervalued considering their Bitcoin mining, AI data center strategy. Yes. I would say they're a little bit undervalued right now, but mainly the reason for that is not a lot of growth this year. They are going to be getting their own miners, what do they call them, seal miners, later on in Q3 and Q4 of this year. That'll add a little bit of hash rate to them. They're going to be replacing some old hash rate with that as well. But a lot of their growth is not until like the second half of 2025, based on what they're building out in a couple locations here in the United States and another one in, I can't remember the name of the country right now. But that's kind of why. How do institutions get affected by this news? Well, institutions, I just checked earlier on. Institutions for Bitfarms is around, I think, like 70 some odd million, roughly. Something like that. So they do own quite a bit of shares. Obviously, their intention was to get into Bitfarms at a pretty good price, let it appreciate as they build out, grow, and things like that, where they could maybe get a 2x or a 3x, probably sell at that point. Right, they're not going to be probably holding until like we are, like we get maybe a 5 to 10x increase on the price depending on where Bitcoin goes. So it's definitely going to affect them. They're probably going to transition out depending if this goes through or not. Right, if you're going to be capped at $2.30, or even if they maybe raise the target to $3, right, they're going to be possibly selling out at that point as well, because that's just going to be like the ceiling of the share price at that point. So they'll be selling out, we'll be selling out, and we'll be moving to someplace else. Let's see, potential share price if Riot buys 51%. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it all depends on how they're buying it and everything else. They obviously bought 3 million shares today. Stock obviously went up on that as well, but they were only a portion of what was actually being bought today. I'm guessing probably, wow, if they want to buy the whole 41% left, I mean, you're looking at maybe another, I'd have to run the numbers. I don't know. That's a tough question. Question, what are your plans to do with your Bitfarms shares, which you plan to sell and put into other miners? Yeah, so I mean, if they do get bought out by the hostile takeover on this, I will obviously sell at whatever the asking price is for Bitfarms at that point. If it's like $2.30, $3, whatever it might be, I'll sell. I'm still in profit right now. Not the profit that I was hoping for, right? I was hoping for at least 5 to 10x potentially on this. If that doesn't happen, obviously I'm going to be selling that out and going to like IREN and probably CORZ Scientific a little bit as well. Is Bitfarms any good? Operationally, yes, they're excellent operationally, right? But they're a little dysfunctional right now in the board, and without having a CEO, and there's been some FUD around them as far as Paraguay Bitcoin mining ban. But operationally they're great. They got Ben Gagnon there, which is like, oh my God, he's so good in that position. He's been doing it for so long. He's probably like one of the best in the industry. So there's no denying operationally they're really good, but just the other stuff around it that's been holding the stock back right now. Let's see, Riot is my biggest allocation, so I'm hoping it happens. Yeah, I mean, if you guys are able to get it at this cheaper price, congrats, man. I mean, that's a steal, like I said. Let's see. I'm trying to find another question. Yeah, I mean, Bitfarms is supposed to get to 12 exahash by June, right? We'll find out where they're at the end of May here next week sometime when they report that. So it'll be interesting to see. They're supposed to be at 10 exahash by the end of May. That was at least their goal. Appreciate it, Sadie. Yes, likes do help the channel. I own Riot shares, but I own a lot more Bitfarms than Riot. I'm not sweating it because I don't think there's any chance of a deal going through at anything close to $2.30. Yeah, I mean, I think it still has to go through the board. If the board approves it, obviously the board did not approve it, but if they up the price at all to like $3, 3.50, I think at that point maybe the board will have to present it to the shareholders. And I think at that point it's up to the shareholders to decide whether or not they want to go through the deal or not. I would be voting no, obviously, on it. Let's see, if Riot buys Bitfarms, would that make the Riot to the top miners in the game? And what's price prediction for Riot if so? I don't know. That would be, I mean, they would be adding obviously 21 exahash to their current hash rate growth for this year. That would put them at 52 exahash. That would put them in line with what Marathon is trying to get to at 50 exahash. But it might put them at might actually put them at number one spot at that point. Cleanspark's getting to 32 exahash, but they have machines bought to 50 exahash, so they're kind of all in line and getting like 50 exahash within the next 6 to 12 months potentially. We'll have to see how that plays out, but what the stock price would be at that point, it would also depend on what's going on with their CORZ facility. Are they able to build out there? Are they growing the hash rate like they said they were going to be growing? Uptime, what's the uptime going to be like there? So there's other things that need to be taken into consideration as well for it in order to analyze what the stock price could be. But obviously at that point, if they get I could see the stock at least possibly going up 50% or at least a double, 100%, potentially if they get through this. Let's see. What a crazy world we live in. Question, how are you feeling? Question, what is a brief overview on your take profit strategy and percent portions? Love the videos. Hope the sun is shining near you. Thanks. Yeah, we had the sun out a little bit today. It was raining. We had some passing showers, but all things being good. How am I feeling? I'm feeling, well, I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I wouldn't say I'm also scared or anything like that. I'm a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not confused. Concerned, I guess it would be the right word, right? How is this all going to play out? Is Riot going to take this all the way to the end? And what will the shareholders vote on it, right? So I guess you could say I'm a little bit upset. Upset would be probably the proper word, because I had high beliefs in Bitfarms, just like many of you guys did as well, that I was dollar cost averaging into them since January of 2022. So it's been 2.5 years roughly that I've been dollar cost averaging into them. I have a really great low price on them. And I'm thinking, hey, I could get maybe at least a 5 to 10x out of that. I would be super happy with it. So that's kind of why I'm more upset about that. It's kind of like all that time that I spent into something that I believed in, that I saw good results in the metrics and things like that, and then you kind of rug pulled from under you, right? By Riot, stating that they're going to pay at a ridiculous price of $2.30 on it, right? So that's kind of the way I'm doing. As far as my exit strategy going forward, I will probably start averaging out like 5% at a time, depending where Bitcoin goes and things go altogether. The miners that I do have, Cleanspark, Bitfarms, obviously, depending what happens there. I have a little bit of IREN as well. I'll definitely start dollar cost averaging out a little bit as things get a little frothy, right? When your dry cleaning lady starts telling you about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners, that might be the time to start selling some stuff. Let's see. What happens if Riot buys at 230? Doesn't Bitfarms shareholders merge with Riot? No. So the deal would be a majority in cash, and then the rest would be in shares. So at that point, I don't know how I think they stated 17% of Riot shares would be to the company or something like that at that point after the merger or after the buyout. I mean, you're being bought out, basically, you're not merging. So I don't think there's going to be anything left. The stock price for Bitfarms would stop operating on the NASDAQ and on the Canadian Stock Exchange as well at that point. Question, is this news good for Bitfarms shareholders or Riot shareholders? I hold both, and it's driving me crazy. I mean, it's great news for Riot if Riot can do it. It's not great for Bitfarms, obviously being taken out or bought out at this low price, right? So great for Riot, bad for Bitfarms. Let's see. Let me see. Riot going to gobble up another 3 million shares tomorrow. Riot will not dump the shares on the open market. Maybe, right? We don't know. We'll have to see. Obviously, they are being kind of bullish on this. Jason's approach today was way off. He could have leveraged the court of public opinion in Riot's direction, regardless of the fact that the offer is super lowball. I do think a proper merger could happen, maybe. Oh, could, here it is. The rest of it could benefit, come on. This one could benefit both companies, something like 65-35 with 200 million shares issued for the new company. They're not going to merge. They're not looking to merge, right? If you merge, you saw what happened with HUT8 and USBTC. After the merger, the CEO of the HUT8 company was out, and the company that was being merged with, Asher Ganut, took over that CEO role, right? So Jason's not going to take that chance. They're going to buy him out. They're going to kick out everybody that they don't need and leave everybody else that they need. Let's see. Let's see. To be honest, somewhere north of $4, I would consider it. Can always take the profits and invest in other money. Yeah, I mean, if we get something like $4 or $5, like I said this morning, or this afternoon, I said I think like $67. I think would be a fair offer at that point. But even like $4 wouldn't be bad. I would be up basically like 250% or something like that. I could take that. That'd be fine. I'll put the money over into somebody else. It's obviously not ideal because I have such a low price in it, but you at least get some sort of a win. Let's see. Trying to find a good question here or comment. So sorry guys, if there's a dead space, I'm reading over the comments here. David, I didn't catch what you said. Mike Alfred got out of Jason about why doing this when Riot has their own problems. Yeah, they didn't really go into, or he didn't state, I don't think he stated as far as what Jason's response to that was. So, you know, they're doing this obviously for growth. They're doing it to get diversification into other jurisdictions, right? And they're also maybe doing this to get Ben Gagnon, right? One of the top Bitcoin miners there. So it would be advantageous to obviously Riot to get him at that low price, but that is a low ball price. Riot has purchased 10% of the Bitfarms, and the price has not moved at all. The price has moved up today. It was up 9%, right, and it was up last week as well a little bit. So the price has been moving up, but not much. Let's see. Okay, here's interesting. Because Bitfarms was diluting, once they stop, the stock will skyrocket. I think overall this is good. We will get that announcement sooner than if Riot wasn't buying shares. Potentially, yeah, that could be a benefit there, right? If they are still pulling on that ATM to get to fully fund the 21 exahash growth. If we get that news, that would be great, obviously. Question, what happens to Bitfarms stock on the TSX if Riot buys them out? Will Riot be on the TSX? No. Bitfarms stock will stop existing or cease existing on TSX and the NASDAQ at that point. Hank, Bitfarms needs to announce Ben as a CEO now, get the share price up and make it extremely difficult for Riot to accumulate more. Yeah, I would agree. I think Ben would be a fantastic get for them. If, obviously, he's somebody that's internally anyways. I think he'd be a great CEO there. Let's see here. Jason, I mean, constant disappointment. Wish I had chosen a different horse. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of FUD over it lately, right? But you got to look at it this way, right? If Riot's looking at them, there's got to be a reason for it, right? And it's mainly because of their operational excellence, things like that, jurisdiction, diversification. So there's a lot of great that Bitfarms has if they could just freaking execute on that and get some of this FUD around them over with. That's what's really holding the stock back there. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to find out. So can wait to hear this real story between Jeffrey, Board, and Riot. Yeah, what happened there? Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. I bet Riot out underbids Bitfarms to make Bitfarms look undervalued, trying to make competition cheap. CEO went to Board with offer. That's why he's out. That's kind of what I was thinking too this afternoon when I did the live stream as well. I was thinking this is all really closely timed to when they came out with a CEO replacement, right? They're looking for a CEO replacement and this news and everything else. So did the CEO bring the news over to the board, right? Maybe trying to sell the sale to Riot. And the board's like, nope, we're not going to do that, right? They maybe came to a little bit of a disagreement on the paths going forward. And maybe that's why the CEO is out of there. Who knows? But it would be nice to know exactly what happened there. What price would you vote yes at? I think a fair value for them right now compared to their peers would probably be a little bit north of probably like $4 or $5, probably around $4 or $5, I would say. I think that at that point, that'd be kind of fairly valued at that point, based on right now, right? Now, if we're looking at future growth and everything else, it'd be much higher than that. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Bitfarms' posted Form 425 with the SEC? I have not seen that. What was that about? Let me pull that up really quick here, if I may. Let's see here. I thought that was, I saw a couple postings on the SEC, and that was from Riot regarding the acquisition or the buyout that they want to do. Let me see here. Bitfarms, let me see if we can find anything. Form 405. Let's see if, when did that pop in? 425. So those were, yeah, so those were the communications. So here, you guys can see it. So those were the communications that were provided by Riot. Riot team, right? So I was reading these earlier. What does it mean? So forth, so on. So it's all of that stuff there. You guys can definitely take a read at it. I'm not going to read over. It's kind of rehashing the same stuff there, but it all goes into why they're doing it and press releases, non-binding proposals, all that good stuff there. So that's all, I believe, for that. And let's take a look at this one here. Jason Less, yeah, posts, things like that. So these are all posts that they've done. So they're pretty much following the book on this as best as they can, provide every sort of information, anything that's been put out there into this one thing here. So they're putting it all on there for investors to see. Question, what will happen to the price of Bitfarms if Riot wins? Well, if Riot wins, whatever their final agreed upon price is, whether it's $2.30 or something higher, at that point, that's where the price is probably going to be at. And then it'll stop trading, and then we'll obviously get our money, and that'll be it. Let's see. Do you think Bitfarms will sell to Riot? I don't think so, right? I think the board there knows the potential that the stock has going forward, especially with them growing to 21 exahash by the end of the year potentially. That's a 3x growth from where they are right now. That's huge. Bitcoin price potentially could go up higher as well. That's going to be huge for that as well. So I'm saying easily the stock should be at least 5 to 10x in this bull run, if not a little bit higher, depending where Bitcoin goes. So they know that there's a lot of tremendous value in there. That's why they didn't even toy with the idea of selling at $2.30 because it's just such a lowball number there. How do you feel about Jason Less as CEO of Riot? Boy, they made some mistakes there, right? No company is perfect, no CEO is perfect. and he's playing obviously the long game here. Obviously, if he can get this at such a low price, that's a master move there, right? Taking out a competitor, bring it under your own belt, and for a really, really cheap price. So overall, I didn't like the fact that they weren't doing conference calls for a while. I thought that was bad on them. I think the CEO has to be out there more in front, in the public, well, with shareholders and things like that, putting information out for shareholders, what's going on and things like that. I think they've kind of fumbled on that as well. But overall, the performance hasn't been great. So, you know, it's tough. In one way, he's good. In another way, he's done a little bad there as well. Let's see. Himanashi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Super sticker, thank you so much for the tip. Let's see here. Baby Lemon with pom-poms in his hands cheerleading. Baby Lemon. I guess you're talking about my bald head, maybe? Not sure there. Let's see. My issue is that it's been said that they may delist Bitfarms if they take over. Yeah, Bitfarms is going to be gone. They're going to basically gobble up Bitfarms, and no more Bitfarms will be heard of after that point if they do buy them out. Here's a good question. In hostile takeover, what would happen to option calls and shares? That I don't know. You may have to ask some people that have a lot more experience in options and calls and things like that than I. I don't even deal with those. Let's see. No one sell your Bitfarm shares. Let it run up GameStop style. That'd be cool. Let's see. If Marathon wanted to make a bid for Bitfarms, would Riot owning 10% already complicate it? Also, would you say owning both stocks prior to the situation puts you in a win-win situation? No, not really. If you own Riot and you own Bitfarms, right? Riot stock may do a little bit better if they do get Bitfarms, but also if you had Bitfarms and they weren't acquired, you might do better that way as well, right? So it could be split between the two. Depending, we know that Bitfarms is tremendously undervalued right now. So if they do get to the appreciation where there should be the stock price and all that, it could be a bigger multiple than where maybe Riot goes to, potentially, right? So there's always that as well. Let's see here. Would it make sense to buy into Riot if this goes down? I think at that point, yeah, it would make sense. If they get big Bitfarms here and Ben Gagnon on their team as well, unless maybe Gen decides to leave, who knows. But if they get all that, yeah, I mean, they're going to be obviously top 2 miner, top 3 miner. It's going to be a race between Marathon, Riot, and Cleanspark as to who's going to be the top miner there. So definitely. Let's see here. Murphy seemed to be doing a great job as a CEO, proven by Bitfarms' growth plan. Bitfarm board might be worse than dysfunctional. Murphy has a lawsuit against the company for breach of contract. Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. He came in after the company. This was back in, 2022, I think? They appointed him to kind of turn the ship around, get out of debt, right? He did a great job there. He did that, paid down the debt, paid off the debt, actually. And then they came out with a growth plan. That was the 21 exahash. So I think he did a great job there. So I was a little bit surprised, and it's obviously been maybe a power struggle there between the board and the CEO. And the CEO lost, unfortunately, on that one. Let's see. Questions. Question: Are there any reasonable M&A candidates in under 300 million market cap, miners, Bitfarms, Hive, etc., or BitDigital? BitDigital might be one, but they don't own any infrastructure of their own. Everything is asset light with them, so there's not really much you're buying there except for the ASICs and the H100s, the customer that they have there. So not really there, not something that maybe the miners would want to get into. Hive has infrastructure there. Who else has infrastructure? Mawson has infrastructure as well. Then you got Hut 8. Hut 8 just went through a merger. I doubt they're going to be on the chopping block. Plus they have a pretty good balance sheet as well. Who else would there be? Stronghold, but Stronghold, I don't know if you want to deal with the power plants there that they have. Who else? On the smaller side, you're looking at DMG, Digihost. Maybe they have some infrastructure. So that'd be about it, I guess. Let's see. Okay, here's an interesting thought. I'm thinking they come in with a lowball offer, make it public, then make another public offer at $5 to $7 per share, and most shareholders are happier. I mean, if they come in at, you're basically paying double at that point. So, I mean, Bitfarms is valued at what, like 700 million right now. So you're paying 1.4 billion roughly, 1.4 to 1.5 billion. That would be for that price. I don't know if it would make sense for Riot to buy them out because you can build out at much lower cost than that. So at that point, you're kind of looking at building out being the better path to go forward, which they have huge growth plans. They got a 1 megawatt facility in Corsicana. They got 700 megawatts in Rockdale. They have space to build out. So I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense on that side of things. What about call options? Yeah, not sure on those, how those would get affected. Question: what would happen to my Bitfarms shares if Riot buys them out? You basically would get called on those, I guess, and you would get your cash into your brokerage account for those shares, but those would stop, I believe, being listed on NASDAQ and the TSX. And unless you maybe get some Riot shares in there, I just don't know how that would work out really on that side of things. But I think you're basically going to get the cash in return. Let's see, I'm trying to catch up here a little bit. Okay, I missed the first part of the video. What are your thoughts about the overall Bitcoin market, stock market? Your video headline this morning shocked me. I hope it all works out. Miffed about right. The overall Bitcoin market is kind of trading sideways right now, so we're in kind of an accumulation phase right now with it. I still think probably the best time we're going to see is probably around after the summer, right around Q3, Q4, potentially. End of Q3, beginning of Q3, potentially, right around there, is usually when Bitcoin does really well, going into the holidays and everything else after people go off, get back from vacations and things like that. But even in the summer, we could rise up. At what price would Riot stop buying shares and perhaps start dumping shares? Oh, gosh, I don't know, probably around, I'm guessing maybe around, this is just a wild guess, between $2.50, $2.75, maybe $3, something like that. At that point, it probably wouldn't make sense for them to continue on unless they're willing to pay, over $1 billion for a company. I don't know what their end goal is on it. I wonder if Riot is purchasing Bitfarms ATM shares. I mean, if the ATMs are going out there and the shares, they're potentially buying those as well as other people. Your thoughts on Stronghold Digital Mining? Thank you. My thoughts on them, they came out just, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, that the board is looking there to be basically bought out by somebody, right? So that does obviously give a high conviction to what's going on there. They've also had in the past, would have to check the latest Q1 results for them, but in the past, their operations have not been not supplying, not generating enough revenue to cover their other expenses with SG&A, things like that. They were losing money. So I would stay away from it potentially. Let's see. If Bitcoin does a poison pill, that means shareholders accept Riot can get discounted shares, correct? Question. I own Bitfarms in Y Canadian tax-free savings account. U.S. stocks are not tax-free in the tax-free Canadian account. What happens in the tax-free savings if Riot buys Bitfarms stock? What happens to tax-free savings account if Riot buys Bitfarms stock? I think you get turned all into cash, I think, at that point, right? Because they're buying them out for all shares, and I think that's the way it's going to work. I don't know if we're going to get any shares of Riot at that point. Let's see here. Sit back and make moves so it drives up the price. Step 1, pause ATM. Step 2, hire CEO. Step 3, get hash rate. Everything will help stock price. Yeah, I mean, I would agree, right? Get as much of that stuff as you can get done. Let's see here. Hopefully they announce the next hash in a few days and state they are scheduled for 12 exits for the end of June. That should move the price up as well. Yeah, I would think so as well, because then we can see that they're obviously on track to get to where they're saying they're getting to. So that would obviously be a huge move as well, potentially. Let's see. Do you think this sends a message to IREN to not use an ATM so the stock is more likely to rise so as to protect against the takeover? I mean, if somebody wants to take over, they're going to take over regardless if you're using the ATM or not. Think about this, right? IREN has 3 gigawatts of available power to them supply in the future, right? They haven't disclosed the locations and things like that. But what's stopping a Microsoft, an Amazon, AWS, a Google, or anybody else that has huge data center demands going forward not to go in there and say, we're going to buy you out for 3, 4, 5 billion, whatever it might be. And at that point, the companies that have 1 billion, you're getting a 5x on for your investors. Investors are probably more likely to take that offer. So it's not just the smaller miners between the miners, but you also take into consideration outside threats that we haven't seen yet. Because infrastructure is going to be in such high demand, or at least access to available watts. I think losing Ben not worth it if they acquire. I mean, yeah, depending on what Ben does after that. If they do get acquired, what happens to Ben? Let's see. What about the options on Bitfarms? I don't know options, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know. And that one you'll have to ask somebody else. Unfortunately, sorry. Riot should buy Sphere for $2.30. Sphere, I don't know if you want to buy Sphere at all. They don't have any infrastructure either. They're all asset light. They have all their machines being hosted. So, I mean, at that point, you're buying older machines, basically, is what you're buying there. Let's see. If Riot pulls this off, feels like Riot is going to be immediately become the #1 Bitcoin mining. I mean, they already have purchases or options to purchase machines to get them to 100 exahash. Why? I'm still trying to figure out really why are they buying Bitfarms, other than maybe just the diversification of jurisdictions, right? Paraguay, Argentina, Canada, United States. What's your take on what is that, Grid, I think? Don't know. I don't really track them, so I don't have much to say on them right now. Let's see here. Even if they buy 51% of their shares, they'll drive up the price and we'll all make money. Yeah, I mean, if they buy up that much, we'll definitely drive up the share price. Let's see. Hi, Sebastian, why not swap to IREN? IREN is cheaper per future hash basis. It has 3 gigawatts of land and power larger than any other miner, and they don't have any of the negative headlines. Yeah, that's definitely a thought in my head. I'm going to see how this plays out with Bitfarms. I think the kind of floor has been put in right around $2 right now, $2 something. And then if they weather this hostile takeover and they can execute, I think the stock is going to do very well. Now, if they get bought out at $2, $3, whatever it might be, at that point, I'm switching over to IREN without a question. It shows how weak Riot is. If Riot had faith in itself, it would buy Riot shares, not Bitfarm shares. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell, right? So that's another thing. We'll have to see what Riot comes in at for May. How did they increase their hash rate in May? That might be a pretty good tell there. If they're having issues growing their hash rate, because if they want to get to 32 exahash by the end of the year, or 31 exahash, I think it was, if they want to get to by the end of the year, we're going to need to see some substantive growth each month here going forward. They're supposed to be like 12 exahash installed. They're operating like at 8 exahash. So we definitely need to see a lot of growth for them each. We got 6 months to go. We're looking at 2 to 3 exahash of hash rate having to be installed each month in order for them to get to that. And we'll see what May comes in at. If May is disappointing, maybe that's the reason why they're looking to buy potentially Bitfarms. Have you heard Wolf diluting shares? If so, thoughts? I think... I mean, they've done dilution in the quarters here in the past to pay down some of the debt and things like that. But if they do, hopefully it's going to be for growth because they need to grow, I think. We saw with IREN. IREN came out, they're getting to 30 exahash this year, improving the timeline to get to 20 exahash. Stock took off because of it. So I think they do definitely need to do that. Let's see here. Sorry if you answered this already. If Riot wins, does our Bitfarms shares sell at the price they agreed at? Yes, pretty much. I believe that's the way it works. Assuming Riot or someone else succeeds in acquiring, what happens to our two outstanding options? That I don't know how those are going to work out, guys. Anything to do with options, you're going to have to find somebody else for that. I don't do options. I just buy the shares. So I do apologize. I probably should have looked into that, but I haven't. Let's see here. What makes Bitfarms stand out more than other miners that have multiple sites in different countries? Operations. And they also have very good operations, electricity cost, good pipeline of growth going forward. That's kind of what makes them stand out. Let's see. Who are the biggest shareholders? How much do board of directors own? That I don't know, but let me see here. I looked it up earlier. Let me see if I can find it here. Pull it up here really quick. If we look on Yahoo Finance, Bitfarms, and let's go here, and we go into holders, we can see that, let me see here. Held by institutions is 22% of float. Insider transactions or insider roster actually is what we're going to take a look at. Total insider shares held is 16.02 million. So what is that? Roughly, they got about 390 million shares out. So let's just say 400 million. At that point was like 5%, a little less than 5%, I think. Something like that. So not much. Major holders include, let's see if we got mutual funds. They don't have the insiders. Institutions, yeah. Insider roster. Let's see, no data on that, unfortunately. Okay. Right, arguably has the strongest balance sheet of all the miners. Actually, I think that might be Marathon. Marathon has a huge stash right now. Hostile takeover. Yeah, hostile takeover. Basically, they're going to try to change the board, get board seats on there, and do it that way. Or they're going to just keep buying shares until they own 51% potentially. Yeah, so I guess bad for Bitfarms shareholders who have a high DCA. Anything above $5 must be terrible. If the fair value is $4 to $5, yeah. Let's see. Kevin says, I bought Bitfarms at $8 at one point. Yeah, I was buying Bitfarms at $5 in December of, or not December, sorry, January of 2022. So I dollar cost average down. My average is now like $1.60 something, I think. Price prediction of Bitfarms by June, and if Bit reaches 12 exahash. Depends on where Bitcoin really is. Bitcoin, I think, is going to be kind of trading sideways here. They could go up a little bit, maybe 15, 20, 25, 30%, something like that, depending on that. Obviously, it's going to help them. Let's see. You can 200% of your money if Riot buys out at $4, but I think people would want Riot to pay more money for some reason. Well, of course, yeah. I mean, people would always want to get more for the shares that they have. Let's see. Your Stronghold may be a good candidate for tomorrow. I don't think so. Mara had a power plant at one point that they abandoned, basically sold it. I don't think they want to be in that space. I wish Cleanspark and Bitfarms merge rather than buyout. That would have been epic. Yeah, if you get, gosh, what's his gentleman's name at Cleanspark? Taylor. If you get Taylor and Ben together, oh my gosh, that would be awesome. But I doubt that's going to happen. Cleanspark talked about acquisitions on their earnings call. Everyone assumed this would not include major miners. Maybe that's not the case now. Yeah, I mean, nobody was really thinking that this would happen with even Riot or Marathon trying to buy out like somebody like Bitfarms, right? It's just those guys can build. The thought process was they can build out at a much lower cost than what it takes to buy one of these miners out. So that was the process there. But I guess some are willing to gamble on it. They see obviously good things there. Yeah, Michael has it here. Yeah, they can build out for less, but I think time is of the essence. I believe that is the case as well. Let's see. Chester, thank you so much for the super chat. Wow, appreciate it greatly. I just want to say thank you for putting in the work. I learned a lot from watching you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I gotta take a sip of my tea. Do you think $4 per share will get it done? Riot will win either way. They are driving share price of Bitfarms up, and they own now over 10%. Yeah, I mean, you can look at it both ways. If they get it for, I think they could possibly pass, right? Depends on the shareholders, how they vote on it. But also, if they don't win at that point, if Riot just holds on to the shares, let's just say Bitfarms does a 5x from here, right? They're going to be up several $100 million at that point. So it's a win-win either way. If you look at it that way, right? If they don't feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Upset or something like that, and they don't sell the shares. If they sell the shares, they're going to obviously make anything on it. Let's see if we got anything else. I'm trying to catch up. You guys have a lot of stuff happening here. They're trying to ratchet up the FUD and scare shareholders into dumping. It looks like that isn't working. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us that have been holding for Bitfarms for a while are kind of used to this stuff, with obviously huge price fluctuations and things like that. But the end goal has always been clear. Bitcoin price goes up in value, their hash rate increases. They're going to be doing a lot better. Let's see. Do you get taxed on the cash back from a buyout? I still have a feeling Bitfarms is a sleeping giant. Thanks for doing 2 videos today. Yeah, you're very welcome. And yeah, you will get taxed because at that point, if you have profits in that, you will be taxed on it. Let's see. What is the threshold to be obligated to sell? That I don't know. You know, whatever the board thinks is in the best interest of the shareholders, right? So at $2.30, obviously they don't think that. Will that price be at $3? Will it be at $4? Where they see that that's basically a good return for investors at that point, potentially. I don't know what that would be. But I think any price that's at least 50% to 100% up from where it is right now would have to be brought up to the shareholders to approve or disapprove, potentially. I think Jason is just rolling the dice on the 230 share price. Yeah, potentially. I mean, they just give them a little bit of an offer, like 17, 20% above whatever their trading average has been over the last 20 trading days or whatever it was. Okay, so I'm guessing the threshold is when you can no longer claim and legally prove that you are acting in the best interest of shareholders. Yeah, I mean, if you can prove that, right, that's one of the concerns there with board members is can you articulate that you've done the best things in the interest of shareholders, right? Because if, let's say, for example, let's just say Riot offers $5 per share, right? And the board rejects it. At that point, you're probably going to have some shareholders issuing a class action lawsuit against the board or the company at that point, right? Because why wouldn't you put that up to a vote for shareholders to decide at that point, I think. So, yeah, they got to be careful with it. Okay, so options will expire worthless. Okay, there's the answer for some of the options questions there potentially. So, but double check that as always. Question, has CORZ paid off their debt? No, they have not. They're going to pay that off with the first tranche, which is going to, I think, exercise at like $6.81, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that, but I think somewhere around there. At that point, they would have, I think, 300 million of their debt paid off, and they would also get like 300 million, I believe, something like that. But yeah, double check on that, but I don't believe it's paid off yet. More than likely, Riot saw an opportunity to buy an undervalued company. That's it. It's business. Yeah, that's that, and a good company too, right? Good operations, good hash rate growth. They saw it, and they're pouncing on it, right? It's basically like a cheetah pouncing on a wounded gazelle or something like that, right? If it sees that opportunity, it's going to go after it. Let's see. Yeah, Jason Les just wanted to buy cheap, pure and simple. I lowball on Craigslist all the time and see what price. Yeah, I mean, could be, but obviously they're buying more shares, so they're definitely doubling down on it. Let's see. Riot might outperform. Remember how bad Mara was in the summer of 22? Yeah, true. Let's see. Canada has invested a lot in Bitfarms, i.e., 25 million tax refund. Would they be able to stop the buyout? The tax refund was actually because of the VAT on the electricity that they paid into it, which they were fighting in court, and that's the reason I believe they got the tax refund back. It was for that reason. It wasn't that Canada has invested in them. Okay. Do you think most of the miners will miss their exahash targets by end of year? It's going to be tight. I wouldn't be surprised if they miss it by a month or two at the most, right? They're going to be obviously targeting that as close as they can, but we'll have to see. Riot's got a lot to install, obviously, in the next 6 months. Marathon has a lot. Cleanspark has a lot. Bitfarms has a lot. It'll be interesting to see which company gets closest to the target, but it'll be tough. If Riot buys Bitfarms, what will the price target be for Riot at the end of the month? I would have to run the math on it, but definitely much higher than where it is right now. High Special, is there a year-end hash rate growth plan confirmed by Cleanspark? I think they are growing to 32 exahash by end of year and plus 50 plus by the year end. Do you know if that is accurate? So we do know that they have purchased the miners to get to 50 exahash, and those are actually scheduled to deliver this year. Their goal is to get to 32 exahash this year, but beyond that, we don't have any firm dates other than possibly 2025. But if you're getting the miners in this year, why would you wait until potentially 2025 to install them? So I think they're going to be trying to install as much as they can this year. Their hope is to get to 32, but obviously if they can get past that, that's going to be all gravy for them and for us, I think. But yeah, I mean, if they're getting 50 exahash by this year delivered, they got to do something with it, because you don't want to be sticking around with those things for 6 months to a year. You want those to be plugged in as fast as possible. Let's see. Tomorrow's is Hive's earnings. Any predictions? I think they should be profitable. It was a good quarter, obviously, for everybody. But I would have to look at the numbers here for them. And that's actually good that you reminded me that that's coming out tomorrow, because I was missing their information still. So thank you for that. Riot probably knows that Bitfarms will have good things to report for me and needed to accelerate and move. I don't know how they would know those things unless they have somebody on the inside telling them where they are installed with exahash and things like that. So I don't know about that. Let's see. Do any miners offer dividends? No. There's been talk about dividends, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, because this is such a aggressive industry where you either grow or die. So all these companies are just going to continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow, and you can't do that and have dividends as well. Miner Doc, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. But some IREN with your tips. Oh, yeah, appreciate it. Right, I've been buying into IREN. Well, I wanted to buy them in like 2022, but then they had the special purpose vehicles go bust on them, so they had to return a bunch of hash rate at that point. And at that point, I said, okay, let's put a pause on any thoughts of buying them until we see where they go from here forward. And they've done a great job last year. And I started buying into them in November and December. I bought some more in January, February, March. But I haven't been buying a lot. I've been buying more Bitfarms because I thought Bitfarms was more undervalued than they were. So I wish I would have bought more. Hey, Special, where would you invest your gains from Bitfarms if the takeover happens? What's the company to go after Bitfarms? IREN. I would go after IREN and possibly CORZ as well. Let's see. Especially after tonight, you'll have that 50K to invest in IREN. Yeah, I mean, if you guys keep giving out super chats, I may get close to that. So I appreciate it. But actually, I'll be honest with you guys. I was actually toying with the idea over this weekend. What if I sold the shares of Cleanspark that I have, not all of them, just the amount that I put in, that I invested my own money into it, whatever that is, and then use that money to buy into IREN. I'm still toying with that idea because I'm up like 400% on Cleanspark right now as it is. And I'm thinking just pulling out the cash that I put into it and let the rest of it run, and then put that into IREN. But I'm still thinking about it. I'm running the numbers on it to see what would make sense as far as where Cleanspark could go and IREN where that could go as well. And would that be a good move or a bad move? So I'm trying to figure that out still. Let's see. Riot should use their funds and just get the remaining hash rate up to 100 exahash. This is too much of a headache to buy Bitfarms, board members, and shareholders. Greed will just not make it worth it. Yeah, good point there, right? They do have a path to 100 exahash with the machines that they have options to buy. They have the infrastructure there to do it as well. It's like, why not try to accelerate that growth there? Maybe there's issues there. I don't know. Let's see your question. If the takeover happened, will we be able to sell, or we have to wait until the deal is done to get our money? No, we can sell at any point. There's going to be a closing date, and the closing date, whatever you had at that point, shares is basically what you get cash for it, I believe. In case Riot buys out Bitfarms, will the shares be converted to no? I believe they're paying majority of it with cash, and then some shares of Riot as well. But I don't know how much we're going to get. They said 17% of, I think, Riot shares at that point. So give that out to all the shareholders that have Bitfarms. You're not getting that much out of it. See. Any potential regulatory roadblocks to the Bitfarms takeover or merger in the U.S. or Canada? Canada might have something to say on it. Bitfarms is headquartered in Canada, so they got to go through all that. I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see. Which company do you think will hit their target on time based on previous track record? So the best one to probably think about possibly reaching that would be maybe Cleanspark. Cleanspark has overall had like a 90% success rate as far as reaching their hash rate targets, and sometimes they've even surpassed them, right? So I would say Cleanspark would probably be the one to bet on potentially, but they have 6 months to go, and they got 12 exahash they need to find a home for. They bought 2 facilities in Wyoming. They still need to buy more in order to do so. So we need to have something happen here relatively quickly in order for them to build out that. So we'll have to see. Let's see. Mara needs infrastructure more than any of the top miners. No, I think they have all the infrastructure they need with the sites that they bought to get to 50 exahash based on what they've stated at least. So if we go by what they stated, they should be okay to get to the 50 exahash. Let's see. Hostile takeover incoming. Yeah, it looks like it. Let's see. Which other hostile takeover do you see happening in this industry going forward? Gosh, the one that would be probably most interesting to me would be maybe IREN. IREN has 3 gigawatts of pipeline of power, right? We know that they have Childress that they are working on right now, which I think is 600 megawatts or something like that. They got some megawatts in Canada as well, but they have a pipeline to get to 3 gigawatts. That might be one of those that to keep an eye on, especially with some of the bigger players in the space like Bitfarms, Google, Microsoft, AWS, all those guys that are looking for infrastructure plays that they're going to need sites and electricity access to those things. So those are the ones that I'd be kind of keeping an eye out, maybe. Did you see Semler is taking a page out of MicroStrategy's book? Yes, covered it in the beginning of the video. Talked about it there. I thought it was great. Also, the comments that they had, or the snippets from the CEO, I thought were really great on as far as where Bitcoin's going and how Bitcoin's looking to be a reserve asset and things like that on the balance sheet. Was fabulous. Let's see. Trying to find other questions. I'm hoping to catch up here. We've been going kind of long here. We've been going over an hour. As a Bitfarms shareholder, what will happen to my shares if Riot take over Bitfarms? You'll get basically a cash for it at that point, and maybe some shares of Riot at that point as well. So basically, whenever that closes, whatever amount of shares you had, those get liquidated into cash, and you get cash in your account, I believe. Let's see here. Man, you really like IREN, huh? Yeah, I mean, IREN isn't like, well, top 3 of the miners that I picked. Cleanspark was number 1. I thought Bitfarms could be number 2 based on just their growth and operation. But obviously, IREN came out here that they're getting to 30 access, so that kind of puts them in number 2 spot now, ahead of Bitfarms, really. So those were the top 3 that I picked so far in the last 2.5 years or something like that. Cleanspark's worked out really well. IREN's is working out really well as well. Bitfarms is lagging behind right now. It's the only one that's causing me grief sometimes. Let's see here. Swapping some Cleanspark to IREN would be a good move. I tried to convince you after IREN PR. Yeah. Right, but I got to look at the numbers. I got to see where do I think Cleanspark's going to go to with the shares I have? What would that amount to? And then I got to look at what's the possibility of IREN now after having a huge run up here. Where could they possibly go? And is the cash that I move over and things? I got to figure this out. But I'll let you guys know, obviously, if I do decide on anything like that. Are you willing to disclose how many shares of Cleanspark you have and average buy price? Keep up the good work, Sebastian. Looking good today. I have a little bit over 10,000 shares. The average price is $3 something on it. Let's see here. I tagged you on X with the Cleanspark IREN share. I saw that, so that's from you. Okay. There's still room on IREN to run versus Cleanspark. Yeah, I think there is room to run, but I got to look at the numbers. Let's see. Okay, according to an analyst at Roth, Bitfarms has 96 million in prepaid rigs with HODL and rigs. Could Riot build out Corsicana and sell off Latin America for a profit? Why would you sell Latin America for a profit when you have pretty good electricity costs there and pretty good operations there as well, right? Doesn't make any sense to sell that off, especially when you paid a pretty penny for it. How come no one talks about Hive? Growth isn't that great for Hive. They've stated that they want to maintain 1% of the Bitcoin network hash rate, so that's 600 exahash right now for the network hash rate. That's basically they want to be at 6 exahash. If the network hash rate goes to 1,000 exahash, they want to be at 10 exahash at that point. So not a lot of growth here. They don't want to be the top miner. That's really why. If they came out with more growth, I think people would be talking about it more. What does this purchase mean for Riot share price? Where do you see it heading? I mean, if they can get Bitfarms at this low price at $2.30 or $3 or something like that, it's a steal. At that point, the stock should do really well for Riot, especially because they're increasing 21 exahash. They're getting coverage in Paraguay, Argentina, Canada, United States as well. So that should really help. What do you mean by poison pill? So poison pill is basically the company offers shares to the current shareholders at a discounted price, or the board members and things like that, basically making it more and more expensive for the other company to buy them out or get to 51%, right? So it's kind of the same thing like a 51% attack on Bitcoin, right? If you can attack it at that, you basically break the blockchain at that point. Same thing with shares in the company. If you own 51%, you basically control the company at that point. So the poison pill would obviously dilute or increase the number of shares, but at a discounted price, and that's kind of the way you can prevent that from happening. Are you planning to sell all of your Cleanspark shares? No. If I was thinking about doing it, I would just only sell whatever I put into it. So the several thousand, tens of thousands that I put into it, I would pull that out, the money that I put into it, leave the rest, let that run, and then move that over into like IREN. Just watch IREN after every exahash report comes out monthly. We'll have to see. So I'm doing the research there. I'll get to a decision here not too long. Could the growth pass in Argentina, Paraguay change the U.S. owner versus a Canadian-based company? Relationships matter when going international. Could Paraguay or Argentina have an indirect veto? That I don't know. Good question though, but I don't know. IREN will be the new Cleanspark. I think it's a baby Cleanspark right now. Yeah, their growth and everything else. If they can continue to do all the right things, definitely. Okay, how this decision is made by Bitfarms management or by Bitfarms investors? Is management obligated to put it up for a vote? I think if they see a price tag for the shares that they think is accretive or beneficial to the shareholders, they will put it up for a vote, and the shareholders will have to vote on it at that point. Yeah, I kind of said this earlier. Isn't it a positive if Riot owns 10% shares? They can play both sides. If shares appreciate, win. If they can gather enough equals win. Yeah, I mean they basically have a win-win on that. But that's if they hold the shares, right? Even if they get denied the purchase or the buyout, they can still own the shares, and if the price of Bitfarms appreciates greatly, they can get up to a 5x, 10x potentially on that alone. So. Depending how they view it, but yeah, it could be a win-win. Yeah, Jason playing poker. Yeah. When collab with James from Invest Answers for a minor video. Many of us follow you both. I can see being a good decision. I've talked to James before. He's talked to me. We've communicated plenty of times. The only thing is I work during the day. He does videos during the afternoons or something like that. So it's kind of tough. But I don't know. Maybe one of these days. Let's see here. IREN has 3 gigawatts of land power. If 100% utilized, IREN can power up to 200 exahash. Their margins will increase dramatically after they ramp up this year with the new S21 Pros. Special thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I agree there. They have plenty of growth going forward. This is building it out. Buying miners for that as well, right? So it's capital intensive. It's going to take some capital to do that. Right now, they're just trying to get to obviously 30 exahash by the end of the year. They have option to get to 40 exahash next year as well. So they're doing the right things. Sounds like an aggressive takeover coming. Yeah, it looks like it. Bottom is now 230, so either the price will go up or brought out at 230 or higher. Yeah. Question: well, given the projections you recently ran, why not include Cypher as a focus point for yourself, given its projected low cost production relative to others? Growth. I'm looking for companies that are growing this year tremendously. Cypher has growth that's planned out for 2025, and that's mainly because of the Black Pearl site there. So if they had more growth this year, Cypher would definitely be a good candidate as well. But I look at growth. Riot should also acquire TeraWolf, Ed, or Riot or IREN. That might be a little expensive for them to do that. IREN's growth pushes them to similar size as the top 3, but trades at a fraction. It should be trading 2x the price right now. Yeah, I agree. Cypher, Wolf, CORZ, or Mara. Just one, if I had to pick one. Wow. Oh, I guess I would have to go with Mara probably at that point. They got the name recognition and everything else. CORZ would be probably close second, and then would be a tie for Cypher and Wolf at that point. Who's your favorite CEO? I like Zach at Cleanspark, but he's not out there as much as like Matt is. Matt is obviously what's his role there? Matt's more out there, more talking to investors and things like that. But Zach's obviously done a great job leading the company there, followed by, who would else be my favorite after that? The brothers at IREN as well. What price would you like to buy IREN? Well, I was buying it at $3 and $4, but ever since then, it's run up on me. So if I can get it anywhere close to where it is right now, it wouldn't be too bad. Obviously, paying a little bit more than I wanted to. I was hoping to dollar cost average in some more, but we are where we are. Hi, Sebastian. Thanks for the great content. Question: I am all in Mara. What does these all mean for Mara? And do you have predictions for Mara and numbers until end of this year? So Marathon's obviously got some stiff competition here with Cleanspark, with Riot, with IREN also kind of nipping at the heels a little bit as well. Marathon has a lot of stuff going for them. They have also some bad things. Their operations haven't been great in the past couple months, so they need to fix those things. And then as far as where could we see the stock price of Marathon, depending where Bitcoin goes, so I think they could possibly at least maybe double this year, if not more, depending where Bitcoin goes. But that really depends on Bitcoin, unfortunately. Okay, I think we've pretty much got up to all your guys' questions here and everything else. Yeah, I'm pretty much at the bottom here. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have Hive to report. We'll see how much Riot buys more shares of Bitfarms in this hostile takeover. We'll see if maybe the board responds to it. They need to respond. This is not good, not okay. They need to be more out there, more progressive, I think, in their actions going forward. At that point, we'll have to evaluate what the board has to say on all of this, right? So it'll be interesting in the next couple of days as far as how things end up at. But that's what we got here. All right. Appreciate you all for coming in. We've had concurrent viewers of 303. I think this is the record that we've had so far. So thank you so much. Hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And then we'll cover whatever happens tomorrow, obviously, as well. At that point, if there's anything interesting, we'll probably cut my lunch short like I did today, and we'll cover something during my lunch if that happens. Okay, but that's it. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. It's 11 o'clock my time, so time for me to hit the sack. But we'll be back tomorrow. Okay, so have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow.